Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time of day it is. Thank you for tuning in to Conversations with Dr. Don. For your first-time viewers, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of one-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about whatever it is we have decided to talk about. And my guest this evening, Constance Emerson Crooker, did I say that properly?
Yes.
Has written, among other books, Melanoma Mama, and I read it in preparation for the show, but I'm glad I got the opportunity to read it because it is one heck of a story for many, many reasons. As we talk, as Constance and I talk, and you'll see what I mean, but this incredible human being, and I'm careful in my description of you. I'm just so delighted with what I've learned from reading about you and your history in the book. But let's go through the first part of the interview about who you are personally. Okay. And your name is Constance Emerson Crooker. What's significant about that name?
Well, the Emerson comes from the line of Ralph Waldo Emerson, who is in our family tree. And he was a cousin and a generation or two before my grandmother. Mm-hmm. And so we've always proudly proclaimed that relationship in the family tree. And I write about him a little bit in the book from time to time. I feel some kind of affinity with, I call him Uncle Ralph. Yeah.
So you inherited a bit of your ability to use words and the language to talk about things?
I sometimes think so. Mm-hmm. I do. I think that there is something in that. Yeah, yeah.
I was fascinated with the book again. Yeah. But anyhow, I have a trick question I always ask my guests. Do I ask it now or later on when I surprise you? Should I ask it now?
Let's get the scary part over with.
If I were to ask your best friend, who is Constance? What would your best friend say? He or she would say, Constance is what?
A chameleon. She shows up everywhere doing all kinds of things.
Constance is a chameleon.
Yeah.
And that makes you laugh.
Yeah.
And when and where were you born? Can I ask you how old you are?
Yes, I'm 66 years old, and I was born in Maine.
In Maine?
Mm-hmm, and grew up in New England. My father was a congregational minister, and my mother was a school teacher. And we had an Ozzie and Harriet Leave It to Beaver childhood in rural Massachusetts, and it was lovely. Yeah.
You handled that first trick question so well, I want to ask you another one.
Okay.
Why were you born?
Why was I born? Well, I think my parents probably, had a little hooly-booly going. They liked each other.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Do you have brothers and sisters?
Yes.
And how many?
Yeah, I have 2 sisters and 1 brother.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And do they know you're going to be on the show?
They'll find out.
You'll tell them?
I toot my own horn, yeah.
Good. If you got a horn, you're supposed to toot it, right?
I toot mine, yeah.
And anything of interest to my viewers about your cultural heritage or not?
Well, it was a pretty straight-laced background growing up in rural New England as the daughter of the minister in a small town.
Oh, yes.
And then I broke away and came to Reed College, and that sort of turned the tables on all of that stuff right quick. Yeah.
Reed College, a local college here in Oregon.
Yes, yes. And and it was in the 60s, in the days of the drug, sex, rock and roll era. So things shifted rather rapidly when I got
liberal
to Reed.
Education.
Yes, very liberal education, and then I in my career I became a lawyer, and in my career I worked with Spanish-speaking clients, and so I took my high school Spanish and worked on it and became accepted in the Hispanic community around Portland. I was worked in that community for years. And
as an attorney.
Yeah, as an attorney, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for these new switches here and this
Yeah.
chameleon characterization.
Yeah,
of you.
yeah.
A religious preference? Do you have one?
My preference is to ignore the whole subject. Yeah. I do write about some of my dismay about various views about religion, about life after death, about people's rigid beliefs, and I am not a person that can accept doctrine. Having been raised in a church, I always say that I've been vaccinated.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your formal education, you're an attorney, and other education, anything worth mentioning to the viewers, for people to understand how you were educated and where you're coming from education-wise?
Well, no, Reed College and then Lewis and Clark, the law school there, and I was a lawyer for 25 years.
25 years. Did you do anything else besides lawyering?
Not for a career, no. I mean, writing. I've written books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You remember your other books that you've written?
Well, they're law-related books. They were books that came out during that period. There was a book about helping train court interpreters of foreign languages in the courts. There is a book called Gun Control and Gun Rights that describes both sides of that controversy. And there was another way back a long time ago, a real estate related book that I wrote.
So no, never mind. Do you have a partner, a wife, a husband, a companion, or a pet? Any of the above?
I am freewheeling and single.
You hear that out there? She's available. Yeah. Your political persuasion, is that an appropriate question? Are you left, right, center, or what?
Most of the time, I lean toward the left.
Yeah.
But I have my own opinions about all kinds of things, and I might surprise myself with an opinion now and then that isn't right down a predictable line. So, yeah.
I'm a recovering Catholic. I was an ultra boy for years. I'm now a humanist, a skeptic, or one of those kind of descriptors. Yeah.
Right.
I even accept atheist if you don't say atheist. I'm an atheist, not an atheist. Okay. Never mind me. We're talking about you now. Memberships in political, social, or civic organizations. You hold any memberships that would be of interest to the viewers?
Well, I have, since I retired from practicing law, I have tried not to put myself on boards and committees and fill up my calendar and that sort of thing. And so right now, really the only organization that I attend regularly is a once-a-week cancer support group. And I go, it was just featured last week on K2 television. They came and interviewed us and talked about, we all have late-stage cancer, we're all women, and we meet once a week at Providence. And I've been going there for 4 years, with late-stage cancer, which is not supposed to happen. You're not supposed to be around 4 years later.
It would be interesting as we're talking, if you're visiting, to see how it is that you're still around after being diagnosed. But you had beginnings of cancer stuff 20 years ago, right?
Yes. Yeah, 1990 was when they first removed a mole from my back, and it was melanoma. And at that time, they didn't give me any kind of chemotherapy or any further treatment other than removing it and testing a wider circle. They call it a wide excision, where they cut out more and tested all of that. Didn't find any more cancer cells, so we decided not to treat it and just watch and wait. And 18 years went by, so nobody thought to look for a spread of that cancer because everybody assumed it was gone. And then I began to, 5 years ago, I began to get chronic anemia, and they couldn't find the cause of the anemia. They knew that I was bleeding somewhere in my intestinal area, but they really couldn't sort out why. And then finally, when I was getting blood transfusions every 2 weeks, I was losing so much blood, they did a CAT scan and found a grapefruit-sized tumor here and a 9-centimeter tumor in my chest. And they were able to remove the tumor here. It was a metastasis of the original melanoma that had spread. Metastasis means that it spreads, and it was growing in my stomach, and they removed that surgically. And then they couldn't perform surgery on the area here, and so they did a combination of radiation and something called immunotherapy, which isn't quite chemotherapy. It's a little different. It's the idea with melanoma patients is to boost the immune system, and so that your own body is fighting the cancer rather than giving you chemotherapy that's killing the cancer, right? And so that's what I write about in Melanoma Mama. I write a lot about the interleukin-2 treatments, which were my immunotherapy treatments. They were hideous, they were life-threatening, they landed me in the intensive care unit, and they were the worst experience I've had in my life, and that includes having two brain surgeries this year.
2 brain surgeries?
This year.
This year?
Yeah.
You see a few
since I've written the book.
Since you've written the book, you've had 2 brain surgeries?
Yes. Yeah.
And you're still upright and feisty as
yeah.
heck.
Yeah, I'm going skiing Friday. I'm going downhill skiing on Friday. Got my skis all waxed up and ready. The edges sharpened so I can go fast. Yeah.
What a spirit! What a spirit! Yeah. Any persons from the past or alive today that you particularly admire or look up to? Any names come to mind?
What was the beginning part of that?
Any persons that you admired or look up to in America or in the world, anywhere else? Like for me, I liked Jesus Christ, and I'm a humanist now. And Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King.
Martin Luther King is right up on my list. Yeah. That one jumped to mind first. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Yes.
Why?
Martin Luther King it was the first time that I became aware of a broader world with bigger problems in it when I was in my early high school years. And my father was a minister who was very concerned about civil rights and justice. And even though we lived in an all-white New England area, he was very alert to that. And so I became quite aware of that at the time that the civil rights movement was going on. And I was very impressed with what he did and what all the people were doing to wake up a whole country to something that was so needed at the time, which was equality and justice.
That kind of a depth as a human animal in this human being is just phenomenal. Whenever he gave a speech, whatever he talked about, there seemed to be no limit in his perception or his sensitivity or his empathy about the plight of human beings.
Right.
And
he was marvelous.
Yeah. How do you see the mainstream media? Is it left, right, or centrist? Can't answer the question.
Yeah, well, we don't need to go there.
What's right with America today? What's right with America today?
What's right with America today?
People are always asking what's wrong. I'll ask you first what's right.
Yeah. Well, they haven't stoned me or made me put on a veil.
Okay. Yeah.
You know.
So what's wrong with America?
They would have if they could have gotten away with it.
All right. Since we have so much to talk about in the second half of the show, we'll take a break early this time, so we'll have more than 30 minutes to talk about your book and the things you talk about in the book too. So can we take a break early this time, Mr. Director in the control room? He says, yes, we can. So the mics will be off for a couple of minutes. Okay, we're back, and thanks for staying tuned out there. And for you viewers who missed the opening of the show, Conversations with Dr. Don is an ongoing series of 1-hour standalone talk shows where I interview interesting people like most of you out there about who they are as unique, one-of-a-kind individuals and about whatever it is that we've decided to talk about. And my guest this evening, Constance Emerson Crooker. Her story is phenomenal, and her book is terrific reading. Let me hold it one more time. Okay. And I read it, and I'm going to read it again. Okay, over this way. So get a hold of a copy of it and read it. It's just a great read for many, many reasons. She's truly a unique spirit person. So I got a cheat sheet here with some questions we've agreed upon, and anything else that may come up spontaneously, we'll ask those to talk about them. Can we go? What is melanoma? What is melanoma?
Melanoma is the deadliest form of skin cancer. There are two other kinds that are common, squamous and basal cell, and they are not as dangerous or deadly because they don't tend to spread or metastasize. Melanoma, if it metastasizes, your goose is pretty well cooked, and it's just a matter of how long they can keep it at bay. I'm stage 4 melanoma patient, which means that they don't consider it curable. They just keep playing whack-a-mole with it and cutting it back and slowing it down.
Aren't you the exception then for melanoma patients?
I am an exception for the longevity that I've had. I was diagnosed in 1990. The metastasis showed up 18 years later, and I've lived 4 years since then, and with all kinds of hideous treatments during these last 4 years, but they keep coming up with something every time it rears its ugly head again, and they managed to figure out how to slow the thing down and keep me going.
Why are you the exception? Any idea?
Well, I have a combination of good luck, good doctors, and I think that there might be something to the choices that I make about lifestyle choices, about exercise, relaxation, socialization, and just trying to stay healthy and happy.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I think that might have play a role is that anything that I do that helps me boost my own immune system has got to be good for me, because the whole treatment modality in my case with melanoma is to boost my immune system. That's what they keep doing, and that's what seems to be working. And so as long as I help along that line, I think I'm on the right track. But I don't claim that I'm doing anything specifically to increase my own longevity. I just think that I'm cooperating with what the doctors are doing by staying happy and healthy.
There must be something going on with your inner workings, your spirit or your core or your innermost you that has you being the exception. You know what I'm trying to say?
Well, you know, I don't know about that. I just know that in the cancer support group that I'm in, with a lot of really feisty, wonderful women who all have wonderful spirits and wonderful wills to live.
All of them.
And they all do, and they die. They drop like flies. So, you know, so I don't know that I will not claim that I'm doing something special that these other women didn't do. You know, I cannot ever claim that. But I do think that we improve our chances of having at least good quality of life and maybe even better longevity by making choices about loving and laughing and being happy and just staying engaged.
And I think for me there's doing and being, and because we have this neocortex, we think as humans we know so much about so darn much, and yet I think there's other stuff that we don't know about. We need to own up to that. And that's what I was guessing at or speculating at. There's something unique about you that we haven't, unique about me that we haven't quite defined yet. It's good, whatever it is. Yeah. Melanoma, you talked about your treatments, and you said how you are now. And what's it like to know that melanoma could kill you at any time? Melanoma could kill you at any time.
At any time. It can come on suddenly, where I'm going along thinking things are okay, that I've got a reprieve. I'm living from scan to scan, and nothing bad has shown up on my PET scans, my MRIs, on my CAT scans. And then all of a sudden I'm clobbered. And that happened to me a year ago with a brain tumor. And, you know, I didn't see it coming, I didn't feel it coming, and I just was all of a sudden hospitalized, and I had a golf ball sized brain tumor. The melanoma had spread to my brain. And so one day I was off to the opera with my sister, and we were about to go see Puccini and Madame Butterfly, and I was all proud because I had opera tickets and I was treating my sister and we were going to go do this thing, and she said I was acting goofy and stumbling and slurring my words, and she was going to take me to the emergency room instead, and I said, no way, we're going to the opera. I don't care. I got these tickets, and if I keel over, just call 911. So we went and we saw Madame Butterfly, and then we left. She drove me straight to the emergency room. They did an MRI and found a tumor on my brain, golf ball size.
So they removed it surgically.
So I stayed in the hospital and had brain surgery. That was a year ago. in February, and then I had to have another brain surgery in the fall in October.
You're incredible.
Yeah,
Incredible.
yeah. So, you know, you can just be going along having a perfectly nice day, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's like, oh, I might be dying this time. I don't know how many times I get to cheat the Grim Reaper. The Grim Reaper and I have been going around. I call it entangled in a tango with death is the way I think of it.
The way you
We're
describe it.
dancing our little dance. It's pretty intimate, me and death.
What
Yeah.
causes melanoma?
Well, generally, they tell you to avoid sun. Radiation from the sun is pretty surely a cause. They think that people with fair-skinned Northern European genes are more susceptible, although anybody can get it. And people who sunburn easily are susceptible. And I had many sunburns as a child, and so I'm in that category. And so now when I go out for years, ever since the initial diagnosis in the summertime, I'm dressed, you can see in the cover on the book, I'm dressed in long white shirt, white pants, and I always have a hat with a brim.
Keep the sun at
yeah,
bay.
yeah, avoid the sun. Yeah.
So I got a question. What does melanoma look like? Asymmetry on top of page 2.
Oh yes, yeah. Well, what you look for is any kind of mole or discoloration that is unusual or that changes. And by unusual, they have the ABCD warning signs. And A is that a mole is asymmetrical. Usually moles are kind of, you know, they're like an oval or round or something. But if they're lopsided, then that's one sign. If the borders are jagged and irregular, they're not smooth and round, that's another sign. The colors inside the mole can vary. It's sometimes there's bluish and brownish and blackish all inside the same mole. And if they grow large, more than 1/4 of an inch, then they should be looked at. So those are things that you look at, and then the doctors take it to a dermatologist, and they will know whether it's something they should biopsy or not.
I was wondering, people are oftentimes born with moles. Are those moles susceptible to turn into melanoma, or do you acquire new moles caused by the sun?
You know, I'm not sure. I know that they say that if a mole changes, that's a bad
mole
sign.
changes, yeah.
So you might have a mole and then it changed. And I think that's what mine was. It was on my back. And I think I'd had it for quite some time. And then all of a sudden it was acting differently. Yeah.
So you mentioned immunotherapy. Is it different from chemotherapy?
Yes, in chemotherapy, they're giving you a drug that is designed to kill the cancer cells directly.
It also kills healthy cells.
It kills
too.
healthy cells, yeah. Immunotherapy similarly kills off healthy things. But what happens is that it doesn't directly kill the cancer cells. It boosts your own immune system. And a highly boosted immune system is not that good of a thing because your body protects itself from your own immune system because the immune system would randomly attack anything, but your body has ways to protect itself from the immune system. But when the immune system is heavily boosted, then systems start to shut down, and my blood pressure dropped. You know, I was really sick when they gave me the immunotherapy in the form of interleukin-2. I was hospitalized to receive it because they had to watch my vital signs, and and then when my blood pressure went below a certain point, they rushed me off to the intensive care unit. They almost killed me with the immunotherapy, but they boosted my immune system, which means that my own immune system was supposed to be finding and attacking the cancer.
They didn't feel too pretty good while it was going on, huh?
I was crazy, literally. I mean, they make you crazy. Interleukin-2 makes you so anxious and hallucinatory that you're a crazy person while you're on it for about 6 days in the hospital.
Wow.
Yeah. And you puff all up. I gained 20 pounds of water weight.
20 pounds
They
of
tell
water
you to
weight.
bring big, loose, baggy clothes so that when you leave the hospital, you'll have something you can wear, because you're not going to be the same size when you leave after 6 days of interleukin. Yeah.
And we talked about how radiation works.
Mm-hmm.
Need we say more about that right now?
Well, as a treatment, that's different from, I mean, the radiation that you get from the sun can cause this. But then radiation as a treatment, I've had several forms, 2 forms of it. One to this chest area that they couldn't operate on, and so they radiated it. And the idea was to try and shrink it temporarily. They didn't think they were going to really give me very much longevity, but they had to try and shrink it because the tumor there had gotten so big it was blocking my esophagus like that, and there was no room for food to pass. And I was getting to where I couldn't eat food. And they were going to either have to put in a feeding bypass or do something, so they radiated it. And that was 4 years ago, and it shrank, and I've been eating fine ever since, and it shrank it so that it opened up my esophagus again. So
have you kept count, like the cat with 9 lives, how many lives you have?
I'm using them up. That's the conversation the Grim Reaper and I have all the time. It's like, how many do I have left, buddy? Yeah.
So the doctors monitor your recovery process. How do they do that? By scans?
Scans.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And are you, of course, you're seeing your doctors now on a fairly regular basis, aren't you?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yes, we're intimate buddies. Yeah.
Is there a special diet that helps fight melanoma? A special diet?
This is a subject that I have determined for myself after talking to my oncologist and people at the naturopathic college and people who are interested in that. I have determined for myself that no, that there is not a specific diet that will affect the course of the cancer itself. My oncologist advises me to eat healthy, like a Mediterranean diet for basically overall health.
Sure.
But that there isn't something that you should eat or avoid eating to affect the cellular activity of the cancer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any natural treatments? There's all sorts of quacks out there, and people who have marvelous, particularly people like yourself, who have the kind of struggle you're having.
Mm-hmm.
Then some people are saying, I will do anything, and then they're available to be a victim for somebody who wants to exploit their condition.
Right.
So have you tried any natural treatments?
Not as treatments per se. All I do are the things that I consider the complementary activities to keep myself generally healthy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, exercise and socializing and that sort of thing. But as for treatments, alternative treatments, I have not chosen to do that. I don't have strong opinions for other people because I think that people have a right to choose whatever medical route they want to take. And there are people who are too frail to be able to tolerate the immunotherapy treatments that I have had, and it would be irrational for them to even want to try to do that, you know. And so when you ain't got nothing, you got nothing to lose, you know. I mean, people choose what I call wackadoodle treatments, but they, you know, they have the right to choose whatever course feels right for them. And I have chosen standard medicine, and it has served me very well. I'm still here, so that's the route I've taken.
You say you have outlived the average melanoma survival statistics. To what do you attribute this? And I think we've talked a little bit about that.
Yeah, we were just talking about that, yeah.
The book you wrote recently, Melanoma Mama, on life, death, and tent camping, why did you write it? Why did you write this book?
Well, at first I wasn't going to write it. I love to write. I'm a writer, and I just love to write. And so when I was first being treated with the surgery, the radiation, the first round of immunotherapy all 4 years ago, I decided not to write about it because I thought I was going to die in pretty short order, and I didn't have time to do the job right. I wasn't going to write the book because I was going to live my life, was what my choice was. Between all of these horrible treatments, I was going to just try and keep living. And then the treatments seemed to work and give me longevity, which nobody really expected. And the doctors were surprised that I was doing so well. And so I just decided to take a cross-country tent camping trip, because that would be fun. Put a tent in the back of my car and go camping. And I got a little national parks pass, and I could go to the national parks for free, and I was going for it. So then I thought, well, I'll just journal all of that, and maybe I'll write about that, you know. And so as time went on, I was able to do what my natural inclination would be, is to tell everybody about this. And so I
you did
journaled
a marvelous
it,
job too.
did it, and then I wrote the book right after the trip. Yeah.
And you're still out there traveling. What does tent camping have to do with it?
Well,
why tent camping? Isn't there other ways you can travel? And that's pretty primitive, huh?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in a family. We hiked, we camped, we outdoors. That's the stuff, you know. That's where you're, you know, unless you're getting the dirt under your fingernails and getting scratched by vines and bit by mosquitoes, you're not outdoors, you know.
Okay.
Yeah. So you know, yeah. I mean, that's the real deal. That's.
One day I'm going to have to try that.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see what else. When you're wandering across the country, you went to Mount Rushmore. You describe Mount Rushmore as a star-spangled icon of unabashed patriotism, page 4. What do you mean by that, a star-spangled icon of unabashed patriotism?
Well, I think that says what I mean. It is the heads of 4 presidents up there.
Yeah?
They're supposed to last for thousands of years. What's that about? We only elect our presidents for 4, maybe 8 years. Why do we want people to look at them for thousands of years?
Because Americans are eternal. No.
Yeah.
You have something you wrote about that on page 102.
Yeah. Would you like me to read that section?
Please do.
Yeah.
It's such a delightful read. I keep saying it.
Okay.
Page 102.
Here
Pop
we go.
quiz.
Okay. Pop quiz. Name the 4 presidents on Mount Rushmore. Give up. You've got lots of company. As I was examining the visages, one man asked me, who was the one with the mustache? He was referring to Teddy Roosevelt, famous for his support of national parks. The other 3 are Washington, Jefferson, and Lincoln. each of whom presided during major turning points in U.S. history. We can endure gazing at their faces only because they've been dead a long time. Can you imagine looking up there at Gerald Ford or Jimmy Carter? Get real.
You're bad.
The idea of sticking presidents' heads on a mountainside came from one local guy with the unabashed motive of attracting tourism to the Black Hills. Boy, did he succeed. But the monument does capture something of the American spirit. It is decidedly secular and civic, reminding us of the important principles of freedom and democracy, Washington and Jefferson, equality, Lincoln, and love for our Purple Mountain's majesty, Roosevelt. Even if it is the height of white male hubris to carve up the whole Purple Mountain.
You are a tiny bit left. You're bad. You're bad.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I liked Mount Rushmore.
I did too.
Yes.
I had
Yeah.
a kind of it's hard to describe the feeling I had. There was something kind of theatrical about it.
Yeah.
And it's not reality, but I couldn't put my finger on it quite after reading your description of it. And so, yeah.
Well, I was impressed with just the technical accomplishment of it. You know, how you can carve, you know, such amazing faces out of rocks up there on the mountain. I mean, it was quite an amazing feat, but sort of like, well, so what and why?
Hubris.
Yeah.
Before you retired, you were a criminal defense lawyer, and you seem to have a strong opinion about the death penalty. In South Dakota, you're looking at a Wild West photo exhibition, and you describe photos of a public hanging of a Native American, and page 109. Would you read that starting at page 109?
Yes.
Yeah.
This was a place.
Back in the far corner.
Wall Drug is the name of this
I've never been to Wall
establishment.
Drug. It's
Yes,
huge.
it's huge, and they have all these photographs of the Wild West.
Yes.
And way back in one corner, they have this. Now, where are we starting? Back in the far corner. Okay. Back in the far corner near the Wall Drug bathrooms, there's a series of 5 photos depicting death. It is a rare sequence of photos of a public hanging. They show the hanging of Ernest Loveswar in Sturgis, South Dakota on September 19th, 1902 for the murders of George Puck and Henry Ostrander, and this was the last public hanging in Meade County. Loveswar was an Indian, and Puck and Ostrander were white homesteaders. It makes me want to reopen his case to look for any prejudice. Not that an Indian can't kill white guys, but I'd bet my law degree that if there were mitigating circumstances, the jurors never heard them. Ernest Loveswar is all dressed up for his hanging in a nice suit and tie. In photo number 1, the presiding dignitaries are walking him up the stairs of the wooden scaffolding. In numbers 2 and 3, they appear to be posing for the photos. If I had to guess, I'd say it's got to be the sheriff, the mayor, and maybe a state legislator up there taking advantage of the photo op. Young Mr. Loveswar displays the same facial expression they do, serious but not terrified. It's as if he knows his role. I'm the guy they're hanging, so I must act dignified up here. In photo number 4, they bind his arms and legs. He looks down at what they're doing with apparent calm, as if his only thought is to make certain they get it right. In photo number 5, you see the backs of the heads of the men in the crowd. Just past them is a silhouetted human shape, hanging by the neck underneath the scaffolding. Goodbye, Ernest Loveswar. Although we no longer have public hangings in the United States, we still administer the death penalty. We are the last of the so-called developed nations to do so. Mexico, for example, thinks we're barbaric. They got rid of their death penalty ages ago. That's all I'll say about that. Don't get me started. This book isn't long enough for my opinion about government-sponsored murder.
Well, there's nothing to say to add to that. I feel similarly. Yeah. Let's move on to the next question here. On the book cover, there's a photo of you dancing on a tombstone while waving a guitar in the air. What's with the guitar?
I play guitar.
Yeah. Even
yeah.
with your recovery and your battle with melanoma, you're still playing the guitar?
Yeah, I was just last night. What was I playing? I was playing Corcovado last night. Quiet nights of quiet stars. Yeah.
And marvelous.
Yeah. I always play my guitar. Yeah.
And you sing.
Mm-hmm.
The book, the guitar represents, you said, my joy.
Mm-hmm.
I wrote about how I danced to Jimi Hendrix in my hospital gown just after bowel surgery.
Yeah.
You are weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
Go to page 95.
Yes.
One day in the hospital, I danced.
Yes. Yeah, dancing and playing guitar, those are my things. And I had my scar goes from here to here, where they'd removed this. And so I really couldn't move very well in the hospital. And when I did move around, I had a teddy bear, and I held it here so that keep the surgical scar from jouncing around. But anyway, one day I decided I had to dance in spite of all that. So in the hospital, I danced.
What did they think of you in the hospital?
I made an impression, yeah.
Okay, please go on. Please go on.
In the hospital, I danced for my life. As I danced, poignant memories. Oh, wait a minute. I've started at the wrong place, I think. Let me see.
One day in the hospital, I danced.
Yeah. There it is. One day in the hospital, I danced. I had a CD player, and I put on Jimi Hendrix. I closed the door to my room and cranked up the volume. I stood in my hospital Johnny and swayed side to side, barely shuffling my feet, as the strong refrain from Fire rocked me. I know how to play that song. I used to perform it on my Fender Stratocaster, screeching feedback and all. I played air guitar while I danced, careful not to get tangled in all the tubes coming into me from my pain pole. I was transported, not to my own performances, but to the Monterey Pops Festival in the summer of 1967, the famous Summer of Love. I was there when Jimmy lit his guitar on fire. I swayed side to side in my hospital room. I let all the light and energy and brilliance of that transformative summer pour into me. I was dancing with the colorfully clad crowds at free rock concerts in Golden Gate Park. I was sleeping in the back of a beat-up station wagon with Rusty. I was on Cannery Row in a dockside dive, crashing with hippies I'd met on the street. I was clad in velvet and denim, rhinestones and paisley, dancing at the Fillmore and the Avalon. In the hospital, I danced for my life. As I danced, poignant memories tumbled one on top of the other. I have lived hard and well. I have lived in a teepee and an Airstream trailer and a one-room cabin in the woods. I have passed a joint to Jerry Garcia. He once sang to me, "Somebody dance with the lady with the skinny legs." I always danced. I danced while Janis Joplin screamed out her soul. I danced while the Who smashed their guitars. I danced while my friend John sat by the entrance to the Monterey Pops Festival, passing out free LSD. This is my life, and I am celebrating it here and now in this hospital with Jimmy cranked to the max. Jimmy's gone now. He didn't make it much past Woodstock. Janis died too, back in the 70s. I don't know about Jimmy's overdose, but I know a guy who got heroin from the same batch as Janis's, and it was too pure and he overdosed, but he lived to tell about it. She didn't. Jimmy and Janis and Jerry injected me with enough joy and energy to carry me through the years, but they all died. I'm alive. I got to live a whole rich law career and to immerse myself in the Spanish-speaking world and play screeching guitar and dance, dance, dance. I've lived a long and joyous life. I'm so glad to be here alive in my hospital gown, dancing while Jimmy plays fire.
Beautiful. You do have a way with the words. Yeah. You talk about some controversial opinions.
Mm-hmm.
Slaughter of a goat. Yeah. Shall we go over to the page 5?
Okay.
In the Midwest, you say, I pick up a pamphlet titled The Flag I Love, written by a Baptist group. And I comment on the prevalence of the Yankee Doodle / Jesus Christ mix-up. Page 130. What does that mean on page 130?
This is something that
the juxtaposition.
My view as I travel across the country is, of course, colored by my view of life in general. And one of the things that I've noticed is the use of the American flag and what I consider the misuse of the American flag.
Yes.
So this is what I'm commenting on here. I say, in a roadside restroom, I picked up a pamphlet titled The Flag I Love. The words are printed over a red, white, and blue photo of a flag fluttering in the wind. The pamphlet is published not by a veterans organization, not by a military family support group, none of that. It is published by Good News Publishers and distributed by a Baptist church. The pamphlet tells how we are stained by sin that can only be washed away by the blood of Jesus Christ, but that our flag shines brightly, uncorrupted by any dark stain. This pamphlet is an example of what I refer to as the Yankee Doodle Jesus Christ mix-up, with the U.S. flag taken hostage by a segment of Christian believers and boosted to the level of a religious icon. Have these folks never heard of the First Amendment? You know, separation of church and state. I've traveled enough now to reach the conclusion that confusing Yankee Doodle for Jesus Christ is pandemic throughout our country. I'm not a big fan of flags because we should start paying more attention to our interconnected world, but I resent the hijacking of the U.S. flag for religious purposes. Hey, buddy, give me back my flag. It's mine, too. It belongs to atheists and agnostics, Jews and Muslims, Buddhists and Hindus. It belongs to Native Americans and Chicanos, to African Americans and Asian Americans. It belongs to nudists and vegans and the spiritually non-aligned. It belongs to tree huggers and whale watchers and NPR listeners. It even belongs to all the guys in prison. Watch out, or I'll send Bubba to take back our flag.
Irreverent is too mild a word for you. That's beautiful. What a marvelous, marvelous mind and sensitivity. Yes. Wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, we're running low on time.
Okay.
But we have a couple of minutes more to visit. And I wonder if there's any message or anything you'd like to say to our viewers that would be of interest and use for them, considering what we've talked about in your writings and your life and your battle with melanoma. And you can go to look in camera 3 and tell them any messages or words you have for them.
Well, I think that one of the reasons that I wrote the book is that I have found ways to find joy even in the valley of the shadow of death. And people need to understand that even if you are given a diagnosis of a life-threatening disease, that life can be full of joy. It's hard work. There are times when I can't find that peace of eludes me at times, but I can say pretty surely that almost every single day during these 4 years of really hard struggle, that there has been some bright joy and happiness in each day, even when I'm in the hospital, because I get phone calls from my wonderful friends who love me. So there's always something. There's always something. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for inviting me.
Enjoyable. So, looks like it's close to time for us to stop before my director, Mr. E, yells at me. Keep your pens and pencils handy because you may want to jot down something that will show you in the closing credits. And thanks again for watching. Can't thank you enough. Now, we have a public service announcement that we've got to tell you about. There's the broadcast schedule for the show, the days and times that you can watch the show. And to watch my shows on the web, go to my website, www.donbaham.com, and click on favorite links. I have a lot of shows on the web available. Got to tell you about the American Civil Liberties Union, the ACLU. Without the ACLU, our civil liberties would be further in the tubes than they are right now. They protect our civil liberties, the ACLU. Been a member now for 40 years. Next public service announcement, please, to get my shows regularly broadcast. While you're watching this program in other parts of the country, go to pegmedia.org and have your local broadcast studio broadcast my shows from over there. And corporate personhood. We got to eliminate corporate personhood because it's sending our country down the tubes. Go to Move to Amend so that we can amend the Constitution and do something about the Citizens United decision. And thanks for watching this episode of Conversations with Dr. Don. And now my favorite thought for the day. You remember KFC, not Kentucky Fried Chicken. Dr. Don's KFC. Kind, friendly, and charitable. Be kind, be friendly, and be charitable to you, and you, and you, and all my wonderful crew.